Hey, Fed Hill.
Hey, this is going to be the intro for the show. Just all of us going, hey, at the same time.
Hey,
Buddy stance. Hey.
Anxiety and ADHD are often very closely linked together. And I know that it's something that I was struggling with when I first got diagnosed with ADHD. I felt like it was the key that sort of unlocked being able to work on my mental health and my anxiety. And the guest that we have today also struggles with some of these things, so much so that he's created a clothing brand that helps bring attention to part of this issue. And in spite of the challenges that he's faced, he has toured with bands all over the world, been on TV, started a family, and launched a clothing brand to bring awareness to something that we all deal with. My name's Aaron Frank.
I'm Cass.
And we're also going to welcome our buddy Vinnie Rupolo with his brand Anxious Youth to the podcast today. This is Fuck the Plan. How's it going, Vinnie?
What's up, guys? Thank you so much for having me. This is so cool.
Of course. Very happy to have you on here, dude. So it's been a while. Vinnie and I, just to fill everybody in, used to work with each other years and years ago, probably like 10 years ago now at Guitar Center. But it's funny how, like, you know, I only spent like 2 years working there, and like so many of my connections like come from that place because like we all were at that age where like hanging out and like trying to be a part of the music scene and like, you know, get involved with everything. And now we're all boring adults. which is fine. So, I mean, what have you been up to since then? You know, it's been a long time. You know, let everybody know kind of where how you got from working at Guitar Center in Warwick, Rhode Island, to what you're up to now.
Wow.
I know it's
goodness.
a lot. We'll get the summary.
No.
How about that?
So yeah, like you said, like when we worked together at Guitar Center, it was kind of a crazy part of my life. Like at that point in my life, I remember I was working the front door, and mainly I remember asking our friend John, I was like, can I have a job where I sit down? Because earlier that year in 2013, I had my crazy back surgery, which kind of like put me out, you know, and I needed to relearn how to walk and everything. And I was like, okay, I need to get a job now. And I needed to be something where I could just like sit, do something, but also be able to play music and tour and like whatever. So that's how I met you. And, you know, it was one of those things where it's like, how can I get back on my feet and like keep moving, you know, and do this, but also be in the music world and, you know, keep moving forward. So I did that, but my goal in like, I was like, okay, in 2 years, I need to move to California. I was just like being cooped up in like a hospital and like not being able to like be on tour and like, you know, play music like all the time and everything and be with your friends. I remember I was like living in a nursing home, literally relearning how to walk with like 95-year-olds, and your anxious thoughts go everywhere. You know, you're like, dude, is this place haunted? Am I getting possessed?
Yeah, it's like, am I ever going to get out of here, dude? Like, I can't imagine.
Am I ever, like, what's taking so long to, like, I can walk now, like, why aren't they letting me out? And it's just like, you know, all this different stuff. But finally, you know, I was able to get out, and like, I was just like, you know what? At that moment in my life, I was in like a metalcore band called Auburn that had like been nonstop touring, but it was like, it wasn't the music I wanted to play anymore, really. It was kind of just like, I want to do something else, but I also want to have this project to take with me to California. Yeah. And I'll do it like bi-coastal, whatever. So I was just like, let me see what happens in the next 2 years. Let's have a goal.
And I gotta pause you there for a minute, because like we often talk about like having that goal and like something to look forward to, and it's like the wheels were set in motion for that like for years before I even knew you. It sounds like you were already playing, or already had a goal of wanting to do that, and like even before I realized like you had all of these challenges to face and get through to get that, and then all of the things that I'm aware of since we've met. So like I can't even imagine how much effort that was to go through just to get to the point of like I can walk and be a functioning human again, and then to still like continue working on those goals. It's got to be like a lot, I imagine.
It's a lot, and like you're also fighting like your anxiety, your depression, your ADHD, because you're like, okay, I need to stay focused. I need to figure out what I'm doing. But it's like you also have a thing like pulling you, being like, well, why don't I stay here? Why don't I stay here? This is your comfort zone.
Yeah.
But I was always like that kind of person that was kind of like, I don't always like feeling comfortable. I like thinking and moving and trying stuff. And so with Guitar Center, my goal was like, okay, there is locations in California. I can easily transfer stores and have a job to do that. So when those 2 years were up, and I remember it was like September of 2015, I told our manager and I was like, I'm ready to move. And like, it was one of those things where I had to sit down with my parents and be like, hey, like, I'm moving across the country, like everything. It's time.
How old were you at the time?
I was 27. So now I'm 36. I've almost been here 10 years. I'm coming up on year 9, literally in a couple days.
That's crazy.
So it's pretty nuts. And like, to be honest, Aaron, I feel like the last full conversation we had was right before I left.
Yeah, probably.
Like, and like, I think it's so crazy how much time has passed, but yeah, I feel like we left off right where, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I feel like that's like a common thing with us ADHD folks, with like the way our brains work. Like there's no lost time, like Cass and I over the past decade have gone a year or two without seeing each other. And it's like every time we do, it's like, hey, come over and have dinner for Christmas, like it's like you pick up where you left off. It's like, it's kind of like family, but in a way it's better because you don't have that like family drama that happens.
Exactly.
There's also no obligations. So it feels far more genuine because it's not like, oh, I got to call my aunt because like I have to and I'd look like an asshole if I don't.
Yeah.
It's an actual, hey, I want to catch up and I want to see you.
Yeah, which is very cool. Very cool. And it's like, go ahead, Vinnie.
I think that also too, when it's like that, it's a lot more real.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like I don't get me wrong, I love my family, but like when it's with people that like get you, you're like, holy shit.
Dude, yeah.
You get it. Like you get this like, I don't know. It's like this feeling that just like comes in you and you're like, okay, you get it. We're on the same wavelength.
It's a wavelength.
And like, I don't know, with our partners, like what, like, it's like, I tell this to my wife, I'm like, dude, you just get it. Like, you understand when I'm like feeling overwhelmed and you know what to say, you know what to fix. Like, it's like, all right, cool.
Yeah. And that's like a crazy kind of like intimacy that you have with certain people. That's not like romantic intimacy, but like if you have a friend who gets you, it's like that feels like a very different relationship than like friends who like, who you're really good pals with and you like to hang out with, but like sometimes you feel a disconnect if you don't feel like that person kind of gets it. And like I think a lot of us with that have struggled with ADHD, mental illness, or both, like you kind of have this like experience of life, right? Like you go through these ups and downs and these like traumas and these realizations about yourself, and you end up with this weird like deeper understanding of yourself than like a lot of other people do. And when you can understand yourself and you find other people who are kind of in that same wavelength, there's like a weird connection there.
And I don't know if you guys have felt this, but sometimes depending on the day you're having, so you have plans with a certain friend and it's one of the friends that maybe you love them to death, but they don't quite get it as much. And you're like, I want to see this person, but honestly, the thought of having to interact makes me feel very tired.
1000%.
Yeah. And then you have these other friends or like our partners, and you're like, you know what? I can just sit there and do absolutely nothing with you, and I don't even have to talk, and I'll just sit there and enjoy your company because I know I don't have to say anything.
Totally.
I don't have to apologize for being uncharacteristically quiet. You just get it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's something actually like me and my wife have spoken about like over the last few months. And like, to be honest, like it's kind of like when you go back, like, when I went home and visited in September, it was like, oh dude, why didn't you tell me you were home? Like, why didn't you tell me you were coming home and everything? And I was just like, dude, I like kind of like what you're saying, like it's like you still love those people and everything, but like with who you are now and who you're learning, like you're learning so much about yourself. You kind of, it's almost like you kind of like, hey, like I can't. Yeah, I'm learning something right now. I need to learn this first
Yeah,
before we
it's like
hang out.
you got
You
to
know,
protect
like
your
Uh-huh.
priorities a
yeah,
little bit, because it's like when you start hitting that point in your life, and like it happens in different ages. Because like I'm 33, Cass is a little younger, Vinny's a little older, but like we've all kind of hit that phase where it's like, all right, now I know what's important and what my priorities are, and like now that I'm aware of that and working on that and learning that it's more so just about cutting out the unimportant.
Mm-hmm.
That's how you start to like hone in on and focus on what really is important. And that's like a really good segue, I think, because like we're here to talk about, like leading a life that you love living and following your passions and, kind of following what you think is going to be the right path for you at the end of the day. So Vinny, tell us, what are you focused on right now? What are your passions? What are the things that are kind of like driving your day to day priorities at the moment?
so my biggest thing right now is Anxious Youth. It's a clothing brand that me and my wife Sarah came up with,
Got my shirt
and
on?
hell yeah. And I it's been something in the works for the last 5 years, and growing up, like I had a lot of anxiety, and I had, multiple therapists, and I suffered with ADHD. I was on medication, for the ADHD when I was very young, like I think like first grade to fifth grade.
Wow,
And then
that is
like,
really young.
and yeah, and then like what's crazy is I'll never forget, like my fifth grade like girlfriend was like, "You're acting really weird." Like, and I was just like, "Oh no, it's the medication, like everything." And I remember, I'll never forget this. Like I woke up at 6 in the morning one morning, and I went and like climbed the counter and got the pills out of the cabinet. And my mom was like, "What are you doing?" And I went to the backyard and like threw them into the woods. And I was like, "I can't take this anymore. This is like making me numb," and
Yeah.
like everything. And it was literally just like really, really taking a toll on me, like to something I wasn't, and I never really like, I guess like in that time of my life, I was also like, I also had moved, like, and it was a new
Yeah.
school, and it was like I was trying to like get in with the popular kids and like,
Yeah.
like do all that stuff, but it was like I don't want to change who I am, and like my mom was just like, oh, okay, like
Yeah.
okay, and like, and from there, no joke, I I was like on like honor roll like all
Yeah.
through
Oh,
all
this is
throughout that,
funny.
but as soon as like I got off it, it was like nah, like I just stopped. I just for some reason I just stopped caring about school, and like
Yeah.
I didn't, I cared more about what could I do in the world that could show me being me off.
Right.
Like, yes, I am a little person, but, is there a little person like baseball player? Is there a
Right.
little person skateboarder? Is there a little person like who plays guitar and like all
Yeah.
this stuff? So it was like I was pressing all these boundaries like as a kid. And, when I became a teenager, I really, really started getting into skateboarding.
Oh,
And
yeah.
like skateboarding was my biggest thing. And like, um, just a quick story, like up until I was like, 13, there was a procedure um with my dwarfism condition called achondroplasia. There was a procedure that was literally called bone stretching. And when I was 13, it was like, okay, when you turn 13, you can have this done. And from like 6 to like 12, I thought I was gonna have this done. Oh, no, like 6 to 10, I thought I was gonna have this done. But then Wee Man came out and
Oh,
like
yeah.
started doing all kinds of stuff. Another skateboarder, Pancho Moller, came out, who was both of them being little people and having the same condition as me. And I was just like, wait a minute. They can do this. Why
Yeah.
can't, like, they can do this? So can I.
Which is
So,
awesome. And I have to interrupt you for a second because first of all, it's to me, it strikes me as very early to like start to have that realization of like, I need to do something that showcases me. Cause like I had
Yes.
that too, but not until I was like 20 something and like burned out on trying to be somebody else. So it's like, it's cool in a way that you learn that so early. And like, obviously, like you have additional struggles that I don't have. Like, I'm not a little person, so I didn't go through that. But
Right.
like something like that, forcing you to go through that early in life, like, do you think that kind of like jump started your path to like doing something more authentic? Like, it seems like it.
Definitely, because it made me realize that yes, we may all be different, but like really we're all human, you
Yeah.
know? And I'm very passionate about that. And like it's something that like growing up, like kind of back to the story, like where
Yeah.
like, the bone stretching, like it's like my best friends were like, dude, why would you get that? Why would you're Vinny, you're the way you are. Like don't change it. Like, and everything. And I was just like, and I was going to like surgeries where like people were coming out of it, people were about to go into it, like getting the whole like show of it.
Yeah.
And I was just so freaked. And I was like, you know what? And my parents thought I was gonna get it, and I was like, you know what? Nah, I'm good. I'm good the way I am, and I love who I am, and I'm gonna make a difference somehow.
I didn't even know
So
that I didn't even know that surgery was a thing, and it sounds
yeah,
like a medieval torture kind of thing.
Yeah.
I'm not
Like,
even joking you. It is. It
Yeah.
literally and like it. Some people have gotten it. And I have no hate on them at all. It's
Right.
to each their own. But like it is a contraption that wraps around your leg. It's screws that go into your knees,
Wow.
and like it stretches. It's really intense. It's
That
very
sounds
very
brutal.
intense. And like
God.
I was seeing that with like
Yeah.
people a little bit older than me, and like I was just like, this is not
Yeah.
wow. And like it was like, oh, it's a year process, and it was like I don't want to take a year off of skateboarding. Like,
Yeah.
I don't want to take a year off of playing outside with my friends. I don't.
Priorities.
And like, yeah. So it was just like, okay, I'm doing this and this. So as I was getting into skateboarding, I was obsessed with streetwear style. I
Yeah.
was obsessed with it.
As a lot of us
And
were in that
I
time. It was
yeah,
huge,
and
and it
like
continues to be.
exactly. And like it was always this thing where me and my best friend growing up, Eric, were like, dude, let's start a clothing brand. Let's start a clothing brand. And I remember we was it was I think we still had dial up. There was like this website that we went to. It was like you could make custom trucker hats. So we made custom trucker hats and called the clothing company Boneless Clothing. And then like sold them at school and like everything. And then like we started making like stencils like and spray painting them on skateboard decks and like selling them at the skate park. And then I think once I got into high school, that little dream kind of like
Faded
went
a little
away,
bit. Yeah.
went away, but like it was still there. But I had started a band. I'd
Yeah.
started getting very into music, very very into punk, very into pop punk, like heavy metal, all of it, you name it. Like I'm sure we all listened to the same bands growing up, but
The
like
early
it's like
2000s.
yes, yes, our emo phase, like it's
Yeah.
a huge thing.
Wait, what do you mean
Now,
of it, this is supposed to end this phase?
no, it's not.
I was
It's
just
not.
gonna say, I don't think I ever
No,
left.
Because if you look at my
no.
Spotify, it's the same shit from when I was 16.
NCR holds up, man. My Chemical Romance holds
Oh my god,
up.
I went to see
Oh,
them on their tour recently with a good
I'm
friend
so
of mine,
jealous.
and oh my god, it was phenomenal. And I had gotten an extra ticket, and my good friend Kristen, shout out to my bestie, but her and I from the time we were kids loved them, and we went together, and she had tickets for the next night too. She went 2 nights in a row. And I was like, damn, I should have done that.
dude, that's so sick. Yeah, a couple of my buddies just saw them at the When We Were Young Fest,
Yeah,
and like, dude, those bands still hold up.
for
Don't
sure.
get me wrong, still love
Some
them,
of them.
still blast it. Some of them, yeah, some of them, yeah. And what's crazy is in my line of work now, I work with a lot of them.
Oh
like a
yeah.
lot of them. And like it's
That's so
pretty
cool.
cool to see. It's so cool to see on the other end.
Nice.
So anyway, so I did the music thing in high school, and I was like, you know what, I still want to do another little clothing brand. So I started another clothing brand with my buddy Seth, and it was called Thank You Clothing. And this time we made like t-shirts, just one run of t-shirts, and
Yeah.
it was like, I remember the design was called Home Is Where the Heart Is. It was based off this song that this band called Therefore I Am wrote, and like I was obsessed with them, and
Shout out
like
to them.
I
Love
was just
them.
like, great band. Um, and I was just like, oh, we should do this and like, have Thank You Clothing and like everything. So we hosted a show, I remember, at this small Legion Hall in Rehoboth, Mass, called
Rehoboth.
Rehoboth.
Shout out to Rehoboth.
Yes. And Rehoboth Legion Hall. And it was the tiniest room, but we had like all the metalcore bands from like the like southeastern Mass area come in. I remember the place got destroyed.
As is often the
Sorry,
case.
sorry, but never had a show there again. But I'll never forget it. And it was like to promote that clothing company.
Yeah.
So, anyways, so music kind of took over my life, and like over the next like 10 years, it was like, okay, music, music, music. um and then when I moved to California, I started working for a merch company that worked with a lot of heavy metal bands. So I was like, oh, I'm back in merch, like I'm
Right.
back in clothing and stuff. And I was like, okay, this is sick. So I did that for like 5 years. And then through that 5 years, I met my wife. And, we we have a crazy story, but like to sum it up, we went through a whole immigration process. She's originally from England
Oh wow.
through COVID.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, and then like we she moved here, we got married, and COVID hit. So during COVID, I was like, oh, you know what? Like, I think we had so much time in our hands. I was like going back to old skate brands and everything. And I was like, oh, this is so sick. I wish we could like start something, and like do it and like maybe one day open up our own store, like,
Yeah.
everything. And so we started like talking about it. And like, I just remember like anxious, and the word youth came up, and I was just like, what if it was anxious youth? And like it was like it touches on so much,
Yeah.
because I literally in my teens, when I literally, from my first panic attack, I'll never forget it, to today, not today, but like till like
This point in your life.
2016. Yeah, from like 2004 to 2000 to 2016, I did not have a damn person to talk to about any of it.
Yeah.
And it was like, I'm afraid to talk about my anxiety because people are going to put me in a psych ward. Like, people are going to think I'm crazy. People are going to think I'm a loser, or like,
Yeah.
Vinny's fucked up, like what's going on with him? Like, put him on meds, put him on, like something, put him in another school, like everything. And it was like all these different thoughts that were just contributing. And on top of it, it was like, again, the ADHD was coming in and making it even worse.
Oh my God, I
So
know.
it was snowballing.
Yeah.
So it was into these huge scenario things that I was just like, what the hell? And my first year of being in California, I actually like suffered with that really bad. I
I
remember
bet.
having a panic attack on the highway, stuck in obviously lovely LA traffic, and
To be fair,
being
that
like,
make that track.
yeah, yeah, and like being like, I'm never gonna get out of here. Like I'm stuck. I'm gonna die here. Like everything, and like all of that, and like trying to figure out how to calm myself down. And the only person that knew how to do that was my mom. And
Mhm.
like my mom was literally across the country, and I didn't know how to like deal with it. And I was just like, so I called her, and like it helped me, but like it was one of those things where I was like, maybe I need to try therapy again. Maybe I do. Like maybe I need to like get into this.
Yeah.
And from 2016 to literally today, I'm still seeing the same therapist, and she literally like saved my life.
That's
And like
amazing.
and like and she understood me, and she even speaks with my wife as well. Like, like it's like she pushes me to do things because in our brains, we don't think we're good enough sometimes.
Right.
We don't think a clothing brand or something that we dream about doing that we want to do so bad is going to leave our brain. And if it does, it's the scariest fucking thing.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. And it's like, will people take me seriously? Will people, and like, I'm also fighting like demons sometimes where it's like, oh, they'll just think it's a cute thing because like Vinny's doing a little cute brand or whatever. Because,
Right.
or is it like just for little people? And it's like, no, this is for everybody.
Yeah.
This is literally for everybody. And like, what's funny is like, with Anxious Youth, our we have a lot of plans coming up like for new releases end of this year into next year and everything, and like a lot of them come with quotes that like stuck with me as a kid, like the last one we just did with the shirt you're wearing, Aaron, keep your head up, kid. Like on the back it says keep your head up, kid, and
Yeah.
it's like
I'll flip
that's a
around so we can see
real
it on camera.
Yeah,
that's
turn
a
around,
real
baby.
quote. Like stand up.
I don't know if you could catch the whole thing.
Yeah,
I'll
you gotta
stand
stand up. I'm sure this is gripping for the audio listeners.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
You can see that I'm still in my pajama shorts, and you can see the cat in the background too.
Love it. But that's like a quote that stuck with me, and like I said that to Sarah, and I was just like, what if it was like, keep your head up, kid, like come on, and like it was always a thing, and like I grew up in like an Italian American household,
Yeah.
and it was always like the yas and like the hey how you doing, like all that stuff, like you doing all right, like like, and I wanted that to be involved with the brand, and it very much was so like I brought the idea to one of my close friends, also the creative director at my current job, which is at Overcast Merch, and I was like, hey, I really want you to be a part of this. Would you want to be a part of a company that me and Sarah are working on? It's called Anxious Youth. Like, can you help us? Can you do this with us? Like, and he was all for it. And he was totally on the same wavelength when we came in, and he was just like, dude, this hits home. Like, and the fact that like I can even have these conversations with, people that I've grown up with who have never ever talked to me about anxiety, or like, for example, one of my favorite bands, Thrice, their drummer Riley is rocking the crap out of Anxious Youth right now.
That's
and
awesome.
He's just like, you don't know how much this brand means to me. Like, and I was like, dude, do you understand that like
you don't know how much that sentence means to me, dude.
Like The Artist in the Ambulance is like one of my favorite records, and I was just like, so you like saying that is a huge deal. So it's like stuff like that. And like my buddy Drew, he's in that band Straight from the Pat, he rocks it all day, and he's just like, dude, like I'm he's literally learning Muay Thai right now, and like I'm like, he's just like, dude, I don't know, he's just like, just wearing this stuff like makes me feel like I could do it, like, and I'm like, dude, that's so sick,
awesome.
and like the feeling that even me wearing this right now, but also seeing you, Aaron, like wear this stuff is like, holy shit, Like
That's
I
that's so
actually
cool. Like, because it came from within your brain, right? And like
yeah.
sometimes it's still massively crazy and cool to me when it's like when I look at like what we've done so far, even just with the podcast, like this was all just stuff that was inside Cass and I's head. And one day we decided, let's just do it. And you decided, let's just do it. And what shocks me more and more and more, the more I hear stories like this and the more I look at other things, is that like every single thing around you was started by somebody who was just like, all right, fuck it, let's just do it. You know what I mean? The guitar on
Literally.
my wall, Leo Fender one day was like, man, let's just do it. Let's just create an electric guitar. Like somebody just said, let's do it. And they followed through on it, and they had the sort of the longevity. They believed in it, and they believed in themselves enough to stick with it, even when things were tough. And it's
Well,
like,
that
go ahead.
that leads into a question I wanted to ask, which was, and maybe there's no answer to this, but did you have a definitive moment or somebody in your life or something that somebody said that finally made you say, you know, fuck it, I'm just gonna go for this. I'm gonna try it. Like, what was the push to get it out of your head and make it a reality? If you can even track that to one thing.
Um, that's a great question. I definitely think like it was a. It goes back. It's almost like a therapy session right now. But
Yeah,
this is
right.
great. It goes
Dr. Cass.
back. It goes back to me being in school, showing that I can do anything just like any ableist body.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh,
And
yeah.
it's like it goes to showing that no matter what you look like, no matter what kind of human being you are, you can do anything you put your mind to. And it was like, how do we do this? How do we
Yeah.
do this? And with Sarah coming in and being, the balls behind her too, like her being like, okay, what if we do it like this? What if we do it like this? And piecing it together with me, not only being my incredible wife,
Yeah.
and the mother of my daughter, but like it's also like, holy shit, you're helping me. Like we're doing this together. Like
That's
you're helping me
powerful.
bring this to life. Yeah, and it's like I think like from the get go of being like, hey, like I may be shorter than you, I may like need help getting stuff off the top shelf, whatever. That's okay, but like I I can still do this, and you could still wear it.
Yeah.
Like you know what I mean? It's like anybody can wear it.
Yeah.
Like and even in that to that point, like we made toddler tees too, and it
Yeah.
was just like I want to make sure everybody can rock this, and like one of my closest friends, like Jeanette, she was like, dude, I have a heat press. We could do all of this stuff, like, little trinket things and like little things. And like, it's like, holy crap. Like,
Yeah.
we can just throw it on. But like,
That's dope. It's always
I
surprising to
definitely,
me how easy it is to actually put it into motion. You know what I mean? It's like you and I, just for a minute when we were getting logged in, we're talking about like this podcast platform that we were using. And it's like it was pretty easy to just log on and get started, and now we're here recording, So like if you have an idea for a podcast, you're only like 5 to 10 clicks away from being able to do it. If you want to start a clothing brand, there's very little actual, like, obviously it's a lot of work to run a company or a brand, but like to start it, you really don't need a whole lot more than an idea and somebody to help you with it, and the ability to go online and Google how to start these things. Like you're not as far away from these things as you feel like you are, and it's so cool to me to see something like that like come to fruition.
and to that point with ADHD and anxiety, you're fighting through these things just to
Yes.
get to that starting line. Just to get to that starting line. And you're like, dude, what the hell? It's so easy. Like,
Yeah.
what is taking me so long just to get
It's in
to that?
here. It's in here is where the,
It's
the real challenge
literally,
is.
yeah. And it's like I've had people be like, dude, like what's going on? Like, like with it, like what's next and like whatever. And it's just like your brain's like, oh my God, you're not doing enough. You're not doing,
Right.
certain things. And like, you're like, wait a minute. Like, dude, I gotta like focus on, I need to make sure it's me and not feel rushed.
Oh, dude,
to
I
be
don't know
true
what
to me,
that effect was, but you triggered some kind of like filter thing, and it's
when I
blown
said
my mind.
me, yeah. So
Whatever it is cool.
I noticed
um
the little thumbs up popping up near your head throughout this
Yeah,
yeah,
it
recording
must
as
be an
yeah.
well.
iPad thing because I know you're on the iPad. Maybe they've got some built in it, but
Um,
I'm here for it. I think it's great.
um it's just like one of those things. It's just like knows my anxiety. It's like my Italian hands. Um,
Yeah,
no, but like I just think it's crazy because like, and I talk about it a lot with again my wife, like, and I'm like, oh, I want to be doing this. I want to be doing this. She's like, yeah, but like we need to have a plan. We need to like figure out what's first. Like what do we do? Then we could conquer this
yeah,
hump and this hump, and like it's like okay, so it's like I guess and seeing the both of you do this podcast, for example, like is so sick because it's
thank you.
like it's a goal that you reached, that you had a plan for. Yeah, it's fuck the plan, but you had a plan, you know
Well,
what I
yeah,
mean? And like it's like when it becomes easy is when it's enjoyable.
yeah,
And and for you to say like, look how easy, like it's like you love it. Like when you get there, and that's the passion. And that's the passion of it.
that's awesome.
So it's like when you could say that, that's a huge thing. And I think, like putting anxious youth out to the world, you know, whether people wear it for the style or for like something that it makes them feel like anything, it's like it's a huge thing, not just for me, but for our community. People
Yeah,
who go through anxiety and depression and suffer from all different kinds of mental illnesses and realize like, hey, I'm not alone.
yeah,
I'm not alone in this. And if someone sees it, like my goal is like, if you see this out and you're like, hey, shit, like keep your head up, kid. Like, like
yeah,
it's like, damn, okay. And like with some of the promo videos we made, I like wrote them up with Sarah, but like it was like one of those things where like it's real life scenarios,
yeah,
like in the first video we put out, it was um a dad and his son playing video games, and like the kid bails, who's playing Tony Hawk Pro Skater. He bails and he's like, oh, and like doesn't feel good enough. But it's just like, hey man, keep your head up, kid. Like and like that hit me in a way. Like once I saw it like on video and like it come to real life, which was like in my brain,
yeah,
because obviously our brains are like, oh, I don't know, dude. Like this sounds kind of like corny, whatever, But like once you saw it, it's kind of like, yo, that makes sense.
yeah,
That makes sense. I felt that because it's like it doesn't have to be a video game. It could be anything. Like when we were kids and like
yeah,
we were playing baseball. Even gymnastics, like whatever. Like I remember getting out, striking out, whatever, and like being like your dad just being like, "Hey, keep your head up, kid." Your dad or mom, like whatever, someone significant in your life was like, "Hey," even your coach, like just being like, "Keep your head up, kid. Come on, let's go. You'll get
yeah,
him next time," and like the second video we actually put out was my friend Lindsay, and she was just like, what if we did it like this, like where I read the statement, keep your head up, kid, and like I feel like that will have an effect on like when you read something like that, how it comes like translates to you in your brain, especially an anxious brain, of being like, oh crap, like like
yeah,
I can get over this, whether your day is shitty or like your week is shitty, you're going through something, like it's like one of those things where it's like I want people to feel that,
yeah.
and like it's like, yeah, I love so
Relatable.
many brands, yeah, and like I love so many brands. I'd love to be like as big as Supreme, you know what I mean, the hundreds,
Right.
whatever. But like it's like I also the main thing that matters to me is like I want people to feel it. I want people to
Yeah.
relate to this, and like it's like how can we do that? So that's our mission right now, and like it's just like the other thing is like also studying like what type of clothing we put it on, making sure it's extra comfortable, like everything like that. It's
doing
like
the little things,
doing the little things like that, which I'm very grateful for of my line of work, like in merchandise and like making merch for bands and like everything. I'm able to learn that. So it's almost like the universe was like, okay, we need to teach Vin how to do this. Like, you know?
Yeah.
And like,
it's funny how that works. Like you learn these little things over time and it kind of all adds up to something, you know? And like we had a whole episode where we talked about like the things we learned from the things that we've moved on from, like, you know, jobs we've had, like people we've been in relationships with, or different stages of life. It's like all of that kind of prepares you. And it's like, I feel like if I didn't go through some of the bullshit that I've gone through in my life, I wouldn't be prepared to be who I am now and to do the things that I want to do now. And it's like, even if this just helps 1 people or 5 people or 10 people, like, you know, people get discouraged. Like, oh, we only had 100 people listen to our show. It's like, dude, if you sat in a room full of 100 people and got to talk to them, that would be fucking massive. You know, like you would think that that's the biggest thing in the world if you're sitting in front of 100 people. Like, but we equate it differently online. And it's just so cool sometimes that like, to think that whatever we're doing is there to make a difference. And even if it does for just 1 person, like that's totally enough and it's totally worth it. But then you get even more encouraged by it the more people you see it help, and it gives you, I think, a little bit more of that like drive to keep going with it because you see it working and you double down on what's working, you know?
I think there was that moment at that mock trial job that I do on the Navy base where that woman came in and was like jokingly yelling at me and was like, "Why didn't you tell me you had a podcast?" And I was like, I don't know.
Yeah.
And she's like, "I have followed the ADHD project for like basically since it started up on social media. I didn't even know the guy was local."
Wow.
She just come across that as another adult with ADHD and then was like, holy wait, that's Cass, what the hell?
Yeah.
And
That's so it's like the feeling of being recognized for your band. Like I was in a bakery and somebody was like, "Don't you play in the band No Plateau?" And I was like, "I do. We haven't played in a long time, but I do." Like it's that weird feeling of like, "Holy shit, somebody actually noticed that?" Like
that happened
really
to
cool.
me. That happened to me on one of my first dates with Matt, and I was like, I couldn't have planned this better myself. Now I look so cool in front of this new guy.
So sick.
And now you're engaged, so it works.
But like so like we get as creative types who've launched something that could have been a roll of the dice, how you must feel when you see people out there wearing your stuff. Like it is a surreal feeling. Like I put something into the world that people are responding to, and it is such an amazing feeling.
It truly is. And like, you know, I think for people like us, it is the biggest reward. It is the biggest reward.
Yeah.
And, you know, even when I was doing music and like, you know, some kids would sing along and everything, that was ginormous. You know, even if it was 1 or 2 kids. And like, you know, now growing up and like doing like this, like the clothing brand, like, and like seeing it out and like seeing people wear like whatever is like, holy crap. Like, you know what I mean? So it's like, it's definitely, to your point, like huge. And especially when like someone who didn't realize that's you like says it, that's even bigger.
Yeah.
That's even like,
because you know they're not saying it to be nice. You know, they're saying it because they actually noticed it.
Mm-hmm.
And it shows that your work is very, very good. You know, so it's like that, like, not to be like your work is very, very good, but like it shows that like your work is doing something,
and it's worth continuing with.
Yes, and like that's what drives us creatives and our little anxious souls like forward. And it's just like, okay, yeah, I gotta go. I gotta do some more work for this. I gotta go. You know? I got. Come on, that's like literally like. You know, even after that, I even told Sarah, like, after this, like, I was like, we gotta go, like, look at blanks. We gotta go, like, because I know I'm gonna be in, like, a drive mode to, like, be like, what's next?
Right,
you know?
Right.
Because it's something, like, where you can talk shop about your craft, whether it be, like, all different kinds of crafts, with people who get it and get your, like, mental health state and everything, and, like, we can kind of, like, contribute to being like, oh, no, you should do this. Like, next time you think about that, push yourself forward to try this exercise or like anything. And like it's like motivation. Motivation is what kills, because it's also like, ADHD can flick your switch like that.
Yeah.
That idea that you want and have can literally be like, oh no, I gotta go take the trash. Like, I gotta go. I have so much to do. Shit, tomorrow I gotta go back to work.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, did I even get a rest moment? And
Yeah,
it's just like,
you
oh,
need that feedback to keep it like in your mind. And like when I do daily planning, like there's some things that I write down every single day, even though it's the same thing. It's because I need to keep it in my brain, and it's like just reaching people to even get some kind of feedback or validation that like this is heading the right way, like that boosts that dopamine, that gives you that extra kind of push that you need to keep things in your brain and keep that as the priority. Which is awesome, and it's like you I think have reached people in a lot of way too, which is awesome to see. You were on TV, is that right? I remember that.
oh gosh. Yeah,
I had to bring that up a little bit,
no,
whether
no,
it's
no,
bust
no,
your stones or not, but like,
no.
that was something else that I thought was really cool, is that like you went and showed people like, hey, this is my life, this is what I do. Like, would you be comfortable sharing a little bit about that experience?
Yeah. So it was a very, 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 very wild experience. And it changed my life, though. It literally changed my life, because with so it was my second year for no, it was like my first full year. It was when I was going through the anxiety of living in California.
Right.
And I was approached by TLC, and I knew that they had like all these different shows about little people, and I was like, oh, it's lame. I was like, they just exploit little people, whatever. And like I was like, I'm good. And like there was this one dude who was like casting, who was actually one of my good friends now. Like he was like, dude, I love what you're doing. I love that you're in a band. And he's like, and I want to show that off. I want to show off that, like, you're a little person that has no boundaries and like everything. And like, you're just showing that, like, you can do whatever you want.
Right.
And I was like, okay. I was like, but like, and I kind of went through this whole thing. I was like, I'm not doing it if you guys do this. Like, if it's going to be a documentary type of thing, like, then let's do it. Like, I want to show the positive light on people with my condition.
Right.
I was just like, because from what I'm seeing, you guys are just exploiting everyone with like Little Women shows and them getting into dramatic fights.
Yeah.
And like just very scripted. And I was not for that. And I was just like, you know what? Like, let's see. So it ended up being kind of dramatic in a way that was like, okay, we need to make you out. It ended up being 6 of us, 3 dudes. I think no, yeah, 3 dudes or 7 of us and 4 girls. I think, yeah, and we each had our own story. So it was like, okay, I get to talk about being in a band, growing up in the scene, and like, I filmed stuff out here in LA, and then like we traveled back home, and they like interviewed my parents and like interviewed my friends, and like at the time I was in that band called Morals, and like that was a ton of fun, but like it was also, I had panic attacks every single day we filmed.
Wow.
Massive, massive panic attacks, because the showrunner was just not nice. Like, she was trying to write out my story and make me out as like the player on the show.
So kind of some of the stuff that you were like worried about from the beginning.
Literally worried about, and like all this stuff. So I'm like, dude, what? I started like raging. I started coming out of my anxiety was so bad. I think I lost like 25 pounds.
Oh my God.
And like, cause I was just so fucked up from it. And like, I ended up like, so when we flew back to like Massachusetts, and they wanted to interview my family, like it was rough, man. Like it was very rough, because it was like they interviewed my parents for 4 hours and were like, tell us bad things that happened to Vinnie. Jeez. And my parents were like, what?
That was like, just their flat out prompt.
Like literally, like tell us about the failures, like the stuff that he went through. Ew. And like, and like all this different shit. And then to like put the cherry on the cake, they wanted me to quit my band on camera and
What?
tell
Like,
them that like I have like bigger things in LA and I'm gonna go pursue that stuff. And
so
it was
they were trying to
crazy.
make this story
Woo!
out of it, which is like, you hear these things of like, oh yeah, reality shows is all, manipulated behind the scenes, and you think like, oh, how much could it really be? But it's like, no, they were actually trying to create terrible situations in your life, which is really fucked up.
Literally. And so it was just like I I'll never forget that. I like took the my buddy who casted me and I was like, dude, I'm sorry, but I'm not doing that. That is not that's not it. I'm just sorry. And if I get kicked off the show, I get kicked off the show. And he was just like, dude, like I get it, but like maybe we should try and word it differently, like with the whatever. And like, I was just like, you know what? Like and mind you, like I was my my brains were on the floor. I was just like, I just want to go home, and I
Yeah.
just want to like, you know what I mean? Like I was really going through it, and like, um, I just remember like, what was it? Like I had talked to so many other people on the show, and they're like, yeah, they're making me do this, they're making me do that, and like, it was really rough. It was really really rough, and I was just like, this is pushing me right now to show that we need a show that can like show that we're just like everyone else. Show that like
Yeah.
I can my life may be a little different than yours, but like we could still do the same exact things. And I remember saying to the showrunner and the person, I was like, "Don't you want to show stuff like that?" I was like, "Don't you want to like make a difference for people like us and like everything?" And like they were just like, "Well." So I ended up getting a call like 3 months after we finished filming, and they ended up taking me off the show. And I was actually super stoked
Yeah.
because I was like, okay, thank God.
Yeah.
But I was also bummed at the same time because I was like, all of my parts, I like kind of pushed them into this like, hey, if you're a little person, you play guitar, or like, if you're a little person, have a dream, like you can do this, you
Yeah.
can do all this stuff. Don't have boundaries. And I ended up being just like a special guest on the show. Like that, I would do like they had me just from parts that they filmed, like just do guest appearances,
Oh, okay.
and
So
they
some
ended
of
up
it like
using
made it to
me.
air a little bit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but they also used me as the cover photo of the TV show. So it was like,
What?
what?
Yeah. What?
So it was
Oh.
like, and like and I, but here's what I'm gonna say. If it
Yeah.
was not for those experiences and all of that panic, I would not have found myself. I would have not found my wife. I would not be in the place I am today. You
Yeah.
know, I would not have done any of those things that literally changed my life because of that. I found myself, I never, during the filming of the show, we went to a little person convention, and
Mhm.
I had never been to one in my entire life because I was like, no, like I don't need that. Like, you know what I mean? Like I'm okay. Like, you know, whatever. I don't need that community. And I proved myself wrong. Dude, you do. Dude, you do need this community because you need to learn about you, and you need to learn about your future wife, and your future child.
Yeah.
And I did. And I literally like made some of the best friends going through that. I met my wife. I ended up like during the first when we were filming, we did like a small like convention. It
Mhm.
was called a regional, and I had met like other little people, and I was just like, oh my god, like it was such an experience because it was like also like I could talk to people like eye to
Right.
eye, and it was
Yeah,
just
yeah.
like, oh my gosh, like
It's like
you
all of a
get it,
sudden
but like
all of a sudden you're in the majority now, which is
yeah,
like, you hadn't
like
been before, which is cool.
yeah, and it was just like that's what I was like there for. I was there for that.
Yeah.
And I was like, dude, I got so many questions. Like, did you have this surgery? Did you have this surgery? Because growing up, I had a shit ton of surgeries, but like, it was like one of those things where I was like, some people with achondroplasia have a ton of surgeries or they don't. My wife
Yeah.
hasn't had any surgeries, and knock on wood, either has her daughter, but like, I have. And I was going around being like, oh, did you really have this one? And like this one, I noticed you have this scar. Do you have that? Like, you know, and like,
yeah.
just being like so crazy. And like, but I remember like really deep diving into like, hey, I want to like push my community and like really figure out the mental health side of this.
Yeah.
Because it's like, no one is talking about it.
No,
Like
right.
at
not at all.
all.
And that was
In
very
this
Italian of you.
community.
No one is
Yeah,
talking
yeah,
about
no,
it
no,
there,
yeah,
guy.
like
But you're right though,
literally it comes
especially
out. The
like
East Coast comes out.
I mean, yeah, me too. I'm from New Jersey, so
Yeah.
the Italian comes out a little bit. But
Italian
like,
from Providence, right here.
hey, oh,
Hey, Fed Hill.
hey, this is going to be the intro for the show. Just all of us going, hey, at the same time. But like,
Hey,
Hey.
buddy stance. Hey.
Whoa.
but like,
Wise Guys Deli.
wise guys, yeah.
Delivery till 4 a.m.
Oh, so good. When I lived on Federal Hill, that was my shit.
What really strikes me about all of what you're saying is like, I did not, you, and we can confirm, I did not prep you for this, but you have touched on all of the things that we've talked about in like our last 4 or 5 episodes, which are like the power of how important it is to have a community around you that understands, the power of like going through experiences that suck and being able to learn from it, the power of figuring out what really fucking matters to you and then pursuing that as your top priority. Like all of the things that like we're constantly talking about on the show. And again, this was not like a scripted thing. I didn't give you any notes on this beforehand, but all of the things that you're saying have helped you or the things that we've been talking about have helped us. And it's just another great example of like when you have that realization of like, this is authentically me and what I'm looking for and what I need to do, how everything starts to click in a way that it never has before. And even those shitty experiences that you've had lead to things that ultimately end up being some of the best lessons you've learned and some of the most important things. Because like, I don't think that I would be where I am had I not fucked up so many times in my life, and had I not made the wrong choice, had I not learned from the wrong thing. Like, I am divorced, and from going through that and learning what I did wrong, what I don't want in life, that's the reason that I'm able to be a good husband now. And like, so many little things, like that's just one example, you know, not to harp on that, but like so many things that I've done that haven't worked out have taught me how to do the things that are working out. And it's like, you said it yourself, you know, had you not had those experiences, you wouldn't have found yourself and found what really matters to you and what's most important. And I just think that's such a sort of one of those poetic, beautiful things that happens in life. You know what I mean? Is like you go through these difficult scenarios and it ends up teaching you more about yourself than about anything else, you know?
No, exactly. And like, there's so many instances where like, man, like I even after like all this stuff, it's like I wish I could go back to like my 13-year-old self and be like, dude, you are cool enough. You don't have to be friends with this group of people.
Yeah.
Like you could do it. Like they'll accept you for who you are. Like you don't have to, because I don't know, like especially, I mean, this is a deep one, but like when I was like, you know, when I first moved like into a new town when I was in 5th grade, like I didn't know how to fit in and I would lie a lot and I would be like, oh yeah, my old town, like something like that. And then like, you know, now that I think about it, I'm like, man, I wish I never did that. Like, you know, to just be like try and fit in, because it's like now I know who I am. Like it's like one of those things. So it's like when you grow into like your, like even later on in life, like yeah, you have goals. Like I was saying, like I have goals to like do certain things that like being a little person I can do. I can prove to everyone that I can do. But like also it's like at the same time you're dealing with like being a teenager, being a like young kid, and being like, hey, how do I fit into this world?
Yeah.
You know, in the situation I'm currently in.
I totally get that. And it's like, I think that's one of those realizations that you don't get until you've been through it later. Cause like I have a lot of similar experiences too, like moving schools or like just trying to fit in and figure out what my life was going to be. And Cass and I, you know, you've told me about your experiences with that in high school too. And like not wanting to fit in or wanting to fit in and not really understanding you or where you were first. And I think that's something that a lot of times comes with experience and age. And, yeah, I think it's really cool that you pointed that out. And but time wise, I know we're getting close to the end of the episode here. So I guess really I wanted to ask Vinny if you had one final, because we had a lot of questions, but we kind of ended up talking about them organically. So I don't think there's anything else that I really have to ask you outright. But outside of that, I just wanted to see if you had any final words of wisdom or advice for other people looking to start a brand, start a band, get involved with the music industry and merch, step out of your comfort zone. If you want to speak to the general populace, other little persons, like, any final closing thoughts or words of wisdom that you wanted to share with the audience.
And also to plug any social media links for your brand.
Yes, take that opportunity as well.
Hell yeah. So just do it. Just do it. You get an idea, especially for us ADHDers. We're doers. We're doers, and we have to do it. We can't underestimate ourselves. We have to do it. If you have an idea, just try it. Just go for it and say fuck the anxiety and just run it. You gotta try and plan out what you want to do, and write down, if you don't think you can do it, write it down so you see it right in front of you, and just like make sure you try and read that every day and be like, yo, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this.
And even if you fail, it's like, it's so important to try and fail rather than wonder what was. You're not going to regret as much failing at something as you will never having done it at the end of your life,
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And no matter if it's 1 like, 1,000 likes, 1 view, 1,000,000 views, it doesn't matter. You're putting it out to the world. This is important to you. And no matter what, like, it's yours. It's yours, and you are spreading it to the world. And whoever sees that, it makes an effect, even if it's one person. So I would say keep pushing yourself, keep pushing your boundaries. You can do it as a person, and don't listen to your anxious thoughts. Just keep pushing forward, and just, again, write down, if you have to, everything you want to do, and read it back to yourself every day until you do it. Because that's going to be the biggest motivator. That's your biggest motivator right there.
And I legit do that every morning. I'm with you on that. So if you want to plug your social media handles, your brand, anything like that you want to, now's the time.
So you can follow Anxious Youth at Anxious Youth on Instagram. We also have a TikTok at Anxious Youth. And our website is keepyaheadupkid.com. And you can see all of the apparel there for sale. We're going to be having a winter drop coming up. And also next year, we're going to have a ton of cool, fun things. And also, there will be a podcast in the near future. Still working on that. So we'll get it going. But yeah, thank you guys so much. This was so much fun.
Absolutely. Yeah, thanks for being here. We will put links in the description for Anxious Youth, as well as for the Fuck the Plan Patreon and website. Thank you so much for listening. This has been Fuck the Plan. And thank you again to Vinnie Rupolo with Anxious Youth. Everybody go check them out.